So my daughter was having trouble with her math homework the other night. I told her to put her glasses on because it helps division. Division. Boom! And there you are. Welcome back. All right, so we're here on our second lesson. We're still kind of launching this unit, getting an idea as to what we are doing. So again, we're talking about rites of passage, rituals or moments that really set us apart from our childhood, where we're a child on one end, but we're growing up on the other end. So let's take a look here at the unit introduction. Last time we did some activities with vocabulary and just kind of assessed where we're at. And now we're actually going to jump into a text. And this is a great text. I think it's pretty easy to read. It's an interesting story. It's something I can relate to. And I'll tell you about that afterward. But it's a very interesting story. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Red Roses. And if you'll turn to page 6 in your book, go ahead and do that. Page 6 in your book. You'll need a couple different things for class today, and I'll go over those as we get to them, okay? So here's Red Roses. I'm going to go ahead and hide this so you can see. And let's go over here on the right-hand side of my page. We're going to just do a quick overview of the main things we're going to cover in today's lesson, okay? So first we're going to talk about the purpose of a launch text. What is a launch text and why do we need one? We're also going to watch a quick video on the evidence log. You guys are going to keep an evidence log, and it's very useful for you. We'll get into that. We're also going to talk about a word network and what is a word network and how can we use it on this text. We will also do a summary of this text, so you need to pay attention to it and be able to summarize it. And we will do a launch activity as a class. This will be kind of like it's a bigger activity, so we'll work toward that. We'll also do a quick write, which means we're going to think about everything we saw today, and we're going to reflect on it in our own words. And finally, you're going to make sure you use your evidence log for the very first time and you have a prompt. Okay? So, let's get into it. So the purpose of this text, a launch text, just like a rocket ship launches, it's the very first time you start something that's a big deal. Our launch text is the text that really helps us understand what this entire long unit is about. This entire long unit is about rites of passage. So this text is a really great example of a rite of passage story. And so if you'll follow along in your book, it's at the very top of page 6, top left, over the picture. It says Launch Text Nonfiction Narrative. Go ahead and read along with me. This text presents a nonfiction narrative, a type of writing in which an author explores an experience using descriptive details and events. This is the type of writing you will develop in the performance-based assessment at the end of the unit. As you read, look at the way the girl's reactions change as she understands the situation better. So, two main things here. It's a nonfiction narrative, which a narrative means a story. It is not an opinion article. It's not a research project. It is a story with a beginning, middle, and end. It's got characters. It's got dialogue. It's got a plot. It's got a setting and some resolution. So, narrative. On top of that, this is the type of writing that you will develop in the performance-based assessment at the end of the unit. Wow, my lines are ugly. But at the very end of this long unit, you are going to write a narrative. And this text is a really good example of that, okay? If you would write this, you'd have an A++++, okay? It's a wonderful narrative that shows what a rite of passage is for a regular person like you and me, okay? And finally, as you read, look at the way the girl's reactions change as she understands the situation better. So we're going to try to pay attention to our main character and how her reactions change. Okay? Before we jump into the text, we're going to watch a quick video on why it's important to keep evidence and to not throw anything away in this class. Okay, I'll tell you when you can throw stuff away. But right now, we're keeping everything. Okay? Your evidence log, any sheets of paper, your notes from yesterday, you keep that because you're going to refer back to it over and over and over again. You have to have your 3-ring binder. You must have 3-ring binder with ELA section, and you clip everything into that binder every time. Okay? So let's go ahead and watch this video on the evidence log.
What I need you to do right now is go to your Pearson account and complete your evidence log for Silent Spring, okay? Remember, you're thinking about the essential question, what effects do people have on the environment? Also remember that your evidence log is meant to help you to build up to the PBA, okay? The assessment at the end of our unit, where you're gonna need to describe how people positively or negatively impact their environment. It is an argument case, so you need to do the research throughout the unit to build your case at the end. If everybody could go ahead and open up those evidence logs and start thinking about what evidence they can gather from this story.
I think the evidence log is important, and it helps us because we have examples on there that we already know that we would need for later on. And we can use those examples without having to go back to the text and look for them.
So she's making the point that you're going to need this for your final exam for the unit. You're going to need this for the whole unit. So it's like the notes you keep with you the whole time.
The evidence log helps us when we're annotating in both the first and close read, which help us understand the story in different levels, such as just learning the characters or finding the author's purpose.
It's easier to go back to that instead of going back into text like Jasmine said. And you just have to look through notes instead of searching through the pages and everything.
That's a great point. You don't want to have to reread every single text and rewatch every single video that we look at to be able to answer questions at the end of the unit. You want to just look at your notes because it's all there. He makes a good point.
When we have an assessment at the end of a unit or at the end of a story, how do you use that evidence log to help you?
I would go back to it if I was struggling with one of the questions because I believed I have a note on it, and I would go back to it and see if it would help me with the answer.
When we do the assessment at the end of the unit, I go back and I use the notes that we took to kind of help me remember the important points, and if I need help on it, I would go back and reference it.
It's a good call. That's why we need that 3-ring binder. It's really good for studying too, if you can go back and study before big tests and things like that. Cool. All right, so that's why we use an evidence log. And what you're going to use while we read this text is this little guy. So you have this thing, and here's what I'd like you to do. At the end, at the end, we're going to read through it. But what I'd like you to do now, let me start over. Right now, I want you to go ahead and take this piece right here. Go ahead and write the name of the passage here. Again, you'll need to pause if you need to. Write the name of the passage there. And then we're going to go ahead and divide this sheet into 4 sections. Okay? So right down the middle, then right in the middle of those 2, right in the middle of those 2. Okay, go ahead and do that. Should be 3 lines. And then what we're going to do for summarizing the story is we're going to actually talk about the parts of a narrative. Okay, so the very beginning of a narrative is called the exposition. I'm just going to write EX here. The exposition. The exposition is where we introduce characters and setting. So first time we meet our characters and we learn about the setting. We also have what's called the rising action. I'm going to write RA, RA here. Rising action means we find out what the problem is in the story. There's some kind of problem that needs some kind of resolution. And so we start finding out what the main character's problems are and what they have to deal with, or their conflict. And then we finally come to a climax. The climax, well, I may as well finish it. Climax, ugly. The climax is the height of the action. It's the one moment in this story that you're like, ah, that's what this story is about. That's the moment. That's the moment where the conflict crystallized. Everything came together. And then finally, we have our resolution, RES. Our resolution is, what does our character learn? What is the moral of the story? What happens to resolve the conflict? Movies don't end with an explosion, right? Usually there's an explosion near the end, and then it goes on for another 10 minutes, and then the characters resolve everything. So the climax is like the explosion, and the resolution is everything that happens after it. Okay? So go ahead and mark this off, and you'll have that along with you. You do not need to take notes our first time reading through this. On your second time reading through this, you will need to take notes. Okay? So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and play the audio here so you can listen and read along in your book on page 6 if you like, or you can just kind of skip to where you see the text not here anymore. I'll draw something on the screen really big so you know it's time for you to stop. I think I'll do this. I'll draw a giant like red dot, okay? So when you know we're done reading it, I'm going to have this giant red on the screen like this, and you'll know that means stop. That's our stop sign. So if you want to skip the audio here and you just want to read on your own, you can do that. Skip through to the video until you see this big old red dot, okay? Awesome. For the rest of you, let's go and play the audio. Follow along in your book. Here we go.
Red Roses. When I was in middle school, what I wanted most was to fit in. That's all anybody wants in middle school. In middle school, you're suspicious of anyone who stands out for any reason. Derek stood out. We all avoided him. My mom had always told us never to make fun of people, so I never did. I can't say the same for my friends. Not that they were outright mean or anything, but they'd whisper behind their hands, and it was obvious who they were whispering about. I took no part in this, as I said, but I have to admit I steered clear of Derek, like everyone else. Despite my standoffishness, Derek started leaving me little gifts. Every couple of days something new. Treasures out of a cereal box or a gum machine would turn up in my locker, in my desk, in the pocket of my jacket. I did not acknowledge these things and immediately tossed them into the back of my closet when I got home. I guess I could have told my mother, but I didn't. Sometimes you have to figure things out for yourself. The weeks passed. I continued to ignore Derek and made sure to stay out of his way. Still, the presents continued, a different one each time. I resented the fact that he spent so much time thinking up ways to get my attention. Didn't he have better things to do? My friends teased me. "Ooh, Leela has a boyfriend, Leela has a boyfriend," they sang out. It didn't seem fair. I tried so hard to fit in, to fade into the woodwork, but here I was, being teased, the butt of a joke, the center of attention. One day, Derek strode up to me in the lunchroom and presented me with a dozen roses. Red, long-stemmed, in a fluted paper wrapper with a note tucked inside. I know I'm not the coolest kid, but take these roses. You'll be glad you did. I should have been flattered, but I was good and angry. The fact that he stood there grinning lopsidedly, roses in hand with that hopeful look in his eyes, made me even angrier. I wanted to squash him like a bug. "Leave me alone," I growled. "Don't you get it? Go away." "Ooh," sang the chorus of girls. I wanted to crawl under a rock. Derek looked as miserable as I did, and then, horrors, I saw his bottom lip quiver. He looked like he was going to cry. He couldn't cry. If he cried, they'd call him a crybaby. "Derek is a crybaby" would follow him around for the rest of his life. I decided I would not, could not let that happen. No one was going to make me, not even my friends. I took the roses. I carried them around all day. I never did talk to Derek after that. We nodded politely to each other in the hallway, but I never pretended to like him, and he never gave me another present. Somehow we'd worked it out. I lost track of Derek when his family moved away. I guess you could say this was the first time I did something I didn't want to do, just to protect someone else's feelings from getting hurt. Maybe you could call this growth or maturity. I honestly don't know. Even though it happened a long time ago, I can picture myself on that day, striding through the corridor proudly, the dozen roses clenched tightly in my hand, walking tall, feeling like no one could touch me.
It's a great story. It reminds me, I'm the opposite end of this. I bought flowers for a girl in 8th grade who, she didn't like me, but I bought them for her anyway, and she took them. She was really sweet. And then over the summer, some friends and us, we all went to her house, and she had one of the roses pinned up above her bed. Aw, it was so sweet, but she didn't like me. But that made me feel good, and I think Lila did the same thing for this young man here. She was nice about it, sort of. All right, let's continue. What a good story. Okay, let me get these guys. Here's our stop sign. Okay, so those of you who are fast forwarding through the video, it is time to stop now. Okay, so we're back. I'm going to leave this up for a second for those skipping through. So, what do we do first? What do we do first? Well, I can't see it because this is here. Close? No, I got to exit, right? Exit. And if I go back, it's there? Awesome. Okay, let me exit. All right, so our launch text. So let's go ahead and do our word network first. Okay, our word network first. Well, let me hold on. Let me think about this for a second. Y'all hang on. Okay, I'm back. I just had to think about it for a second, but I got it. Okay. What you're going to do is fill out this worksheet, okay? And with this worksheet, it's important that you cover the main parts of the story, the exposition, the rising action, the climax, and the resolution. I don't want you to worry about this stuff just yet. Don't worry about the analysis. I want you just to do the summarized part, okay? Just talking about basically what's there, and that's all. Nothing more than that. So I'm going to kind of like walk you through this for a second. So if you want to go ahead and rescan through the story, you can do that. You don't need to watch this part of the video. If you want help walking through this part, please keep the video on. And those of you who are going to leave, again, I'll bring our stop sign back when it's time to come back, so you can scrub through the video and find where we are. Okay? Now, here we go. So first we need to talk about our exposition, where we introduce the characters. And I'll just give you the zones where you can do that. Let me erase this. Erase. The zones we need to focus on for exposition, where we introduce our characters, is here. It's like paragraphs 1 and 2. This is where we learn about our characters, the basics about them. And then the rising action, where we get the problem introduced, is here, 3 and 4. Really, it's like 3, 4, and 5, okay? problem gets worse. I'm going to turn this off for a second. Okay, so 3, 4, and 5. And then 6 is where we start to see the climax happening. But really the climax of this is here. Boop, 7, 8, 9. So 7, 8, 9 is the climax. You summarize this section, and that will get you good. And then the last part here is the resolution, which, whoa, that's not right. Clear that. The resolution is right here. Okay? So knowing that you have those sections, 11, 12, 13, or 12, 13, 14. So knowing that you have those sections, you know what the paragraphs are now. I want you to go ahead and summarize each section. You may have to go back and reread them. That's okay. Just pause the video here. You need to reread this section and do that. All right? Go pause it. Okay. Very good. So, time to resume. Okay, so with resuming, we've summarized, we filled out our summary sheet, right? We filled all this thing out right here, just the summary part. And now what we're going to do is work on the word network, and we're going to talk about what a word network is and start filling some of that out. So take a look with me. If you look on your page, page 7, at the bottom of the page, you'll see that box that says Word Network for Rites of Passage. Go ahead and read this with me. Vocabulary. A word network is a collection of words related to a topic. As you read the selections in this unit, identify interesting words related to the ideas of rites of passage and add them to your word network. For example, you might begin by adding words from the launch text such as acknowledge, attention, and maturity. Continue to add words as you complete this unit. So you're only going to take a couple of words, probably the most important words, but I think from this text we really saw her sense of growth. Where was it? She talks about it as the first time she did something. Okay, right here. It's in paragraph 13. She says, I guess you could say this was the first time I did something I didn't want to do just to protect someone else's feelings from getting hurt. Maybe you could call this growth or maturity. I honestly don't know. So I think coming of age or rites of passage has to do with growth, and it has to do with maturity. And the fact that this is her resolution as the author, this is what she identified as the most important ideas, is like, cool. So we know those can go in your word bank there. So if you want to add those 2 words, add any other words you think are important. Don't fill up the whole chart. Just be, 2, 3 words. Okay? Pause the video and come back once you've filled that out. Pause. Okay, welcome back. And I can't tell if this is... Okay, there we go. That's better. So let's talk about the summary that we need to do. And the summary is going to be pretty simple. You're really going to take this worksheet, okay? And everything you wrote in the summary area here, you're going to just kind of put it together and blend it all in, write one paragraph. A summary is going to be accurate, so you're going to capture the main points of the story. You're only going to write about what actually happened in the story. You're not going to read deeply into things or the meaning of the allusions or the meaning of the similes. You're really just going to say what happened. You're going to repeat the story in less words. Okay? So that's our summary. I want you to go ahead and flip this sheet over and just summarize on the back there. Questions about that? Too bad. You can't ask questions. I'm on a video. But if I am in the room, you can flag me. All right. Go ahead and write your summary on the back of this sheet and pause the video. Okay, so you've written your summary. You've read this thing twice. You got pretty much everything you need to get done today. We're going to do some other activities in the next lesson, more of like class activities. And I think it should be a lot of fun. And we'll do some final reflection on this text. Thank you guys so much. And I will see you whenever you click on the next video, right? Bye, guys.